Clarification from the CE on talks with Philippine President. Measures to improve on kindergarten admissions in North District and Taipo. And the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons wins Nobel Peace Prize.
Good evening. A Manila newspaper report has kicked up controversy over Philippine President Benigno Aquino's response to Chief Executive Leung Chun-ying's demands to resolve the 2010 Manila bus hostage issue. The SAR government issued statements this afternoon to clarify its stance. The two sides can put the incident behind them when Aquino acts on those demands.
It all seemed to be finally moving forward when Leung Chun-ying initiated a meeting with the Philippine president on Monday on the sidelines of the APEC summit in Indonesia.
We're working on to put that behind us. So I got the sense that they really were sincerely trying to come to a solution to that incident.
China's Premier Li Keqiang has since also urged the Philippines to resolve the issue while attending another economic forum, the ASEAN meeting in Brunei. But Philippine paper Manila Standard today kicked up renewed controversy today by quoting presidential spokesman Edwin Lacierda as saying that China's appeal had come too late because the two sides had agreed to put behind them the incident. Local media today queried the saying, which led to much confusion as to whether the Philippine government believed the SAR had agreed the case had been put behind them.
I'm really shocked after I heard for his message, because over the past 3 years, we have tried our best and we have put many efforts to try to settle this tragedies. So I just don't understand why after the Philippine government, they didn't take any responsibility. So why we can put this behind.
In fact, Manila Standard today itself had earlier reported after Leung and Aquino's meeting that the two had agreed to take steps to put behind the case. The chief executive met with victims and bereaved family members today. Speaking to the press afterwards, Leung said his government has one aim, that is to keep negotiating with his Philippine counterparts until the victims and their families get a satisfactory answer. Present at the meeting, Che Chi-kin said he felt that this is the first time in 3 years the government is really doing anything, even though nothing has been promised. But he hoped that it can take a stronger stance on the issue. Meanwhile, Manila Mayor Joseph Estrada, who's also a former president of the Philippines, said although he was not mayor during the 2010 tragedy, he wants to apologize to Hong Kong on behalf of his city. Estrada will be passing through Hong Kong on the way to Beijing next month. He said he will try to fight for Hong Kong's lifting of a black travel warning against his country.
The Education Bureau and kindergarten principals in North District and Taipo have come up with 6 measures to improve on admission procedures. This follows a scramble for kindergarten admission forms in the 2 districts, as local children and those born here to mainland parents compete for school places in the 2 districts. Vicky Kong has the story.
A consensus between the government and operators of kindergartens in North District and Taipo. Secretary for Education Eddie Ng says the authorities will centralize the registration of new pupils in the 2 districts near the border with the mainland. The goal is to prevent each child from taking up more than one school place to prevent any man-made shortage of kindergarten places in the next academic year. Under the One Child, One Offer scheme, schools will inform parents of application results in early December. Parents are required to pick their most preferred offer and register their choice at the school between December 11th and 13th. The Education Bureau will then collect data from all kindergartens and issue a registration letter with the confirmed offer to the child in February next year. Kindergartens also agreed to offer online applications, abolish application quotas, increase school places, and give preference in admission to applicants who live near the school. The Education Bureau said it will also consider setting up hotlines to give parents a simpler channel to find out the latest information on school places. Vicky Kong, TVB News.
Turning overseas now, and the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons has won this year's Nobel Peace Prize. In awarding the prize, the Norwegian Nobel Committee said it wanted to honour the organisation for its efforts to get rid of chemical weapons around the world.
The Norwegian Nobel Committee has decided that the Nobel Peace Prize for 2013 is to be awarded to the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons, OPCW, for its extensive work for eliminating chemical weapons.
The teenage Pakistani activist Malala Yousafzai had been the sentimental favourite for the Peace Prize. But in the end, the Nobel Committee decided to recognise a group which has worked tirelessly over the years to stop the production, the spread and the use of chemical weapons. Chemical weapons have dominated the global agenda in recent months, especially after hundreds were killed in a poison gas attack in Syria. The Nobel Committee said this served as a grim reminder that the world needs to increase its efforts to ban and eliminate them.
Recent events in Syria, where chemical weapons have again been put to use, have underlined the need to enhance the efforts to do away with such weapons.
Based in The Hague in the Netherlands, the OPCW was formed in 1997 to enforce the Chemical Weapons Convention. The convention is the first international treaty to outlaw an entire class of weapons. The organisation has 189 member states, and today's award comes just days before Syria officially joins. By giving the award to the largely faceless international organisation, the Nobel Committee found a way to highlight the Syrian conflict without siding with any group involved in the fighting. It also comes as chemical weapons inspectors begin a highly risky United Nations disarmament mission in Syria to verify and destroy the country's stock of poison gas and nerve agents amid a raging civil war.
There is some optimism that the United States can avoid a devastating debt default before next Thursday's deadline. A plan presented by the Republicans would extend the government's ability to borrow money for 6 weeks if President Barack Obama agrees to fresh negotiations on spending cuts. Alan Buckner reports.
If the government's debt ceiling isn't raised by October 17th, Washington won't have enough money to pay its debt. Talks between the White House and Republican lawmakers stretched into the night with no resolution, but there was fresh hope.
We had a very useful meeting. It was clarifying, I think, for both sides as to where we are. We'll come back to have more discussion. The president said that he would go and consult with the administration folks, and hopefully we can see a way forward after that.
And I would hope that the president will look at this as an opportunity and a good faith effort on our part to move halfway to what he's demanded.
Under the Republican plan, the partial government shutdown, now 10 days old, would continue until a long-term agreement is reached. White House spokesman Jay Carney said the president prefers a long-term plan, but is willing to talk.
The president is happy that cooler heads at least seem to be prevailing in the House, that there at least seems to be a recognition that default is not an option.
Meanwhile, economic leaders from around the world warned of the sweeping ramifications if the U.S. government defaults on its debt.
Failure to raise the debt ceiling would cause serious damage to the U.S. economy, but also to the global economy as a result of the spillover effect.
It's probably safe to say that this could cause severe damage to the U.S. economy and to the world economy.
Alan Buckner, TVB News.
Edward Snowden says he has no regrets about what he did. The former National Security Agency systems analyst who went on the run after leaking details of the agency's surveillance of phone and internet usage around the world has met with former U.S. government officials in Moscow. James Aitken has the story.
Edward Snowden has been in hiding ever since he fled Hawaii for Hong Kong in June, eventually ending up in Russia, where he's received temporary political asylum. But this week, he decided to receive guests. Snowden met with 4 former U.S. government officials who themselves have all criticized their previous employers for what they believe is wrongdoing in American security intelligence.
I thought he looked great. He seemed very centered and Brilliant, smart, funny, very engaged. I thought he looked very well.
But this is an extraordinary person. He's made his peace with what he did. He's convinced that what he did was right. He has no regrets, and he's willing to face whatever the future holds for him.
Raddick and McGovern's group are the first Americans known to have met Snowden since he arrived in Russia. They also presented Snowden with a special honor, the Sam Adams Award for Integrity. The 30-year-old whistleblower is wanted in the U.S. on charges of espionage. Russia's decision to grant him temporary asylum has further aggravated tense relations between the two countries. Russian leader Vladimir Putin, a former spy himself, has used the case to accuse the U.S. of double standards on privacy rights.
I think he recognizes that America is a rather hostile place now, and although he's in a different country, he's actually far safer here than anywhere else. And it's clearly one of the ironies of history, that Russia would actually respect international law and grant him asylee status.
Snowden's father, Lon, has also traveled to Moscow this week to meet with his son. The younger Snowden was also a nominee for another award earlier this week, the European Parliament's Sakharov Prize for Freedom of Thought. James Aiken, TVB News.
While Malala Yousafzai may not have won the Nobel Peace Prize, the European Union did honor her with its annual Human Rights Award. People in her hometown in Pakistan said they were proud of her and the way she has sought to ensure girls receive an education. The Sakharov Prize for Freedom of Thought has been awarded each year since 1988. Previous winners have included former South African President Nelson Mandela and Myanmar opposition leader Aung San Suu Kyi. In the United States, Malala has been busy promoting her new book, giving TV interviews and promoting education for girls. Last year, Malala survived a Taliban assassination attempt because of her outspoken support for girls' education. And it was back to work for Libyan Prime Minister Ali Zaidan after his kidnapping yesterday ended with his release. Zaidan was mobbed by admirers as he arrived at his office building. The gunmen who snatched him from the hotel where he lives were believed to be militiamen. Reports from Tripoli now suggest he was freed when members of another militia stormed the site where he was being held. Zaidan thanked those who helped free him, but he provided no details and wouldn't say who was behind the abduction. The brazen snatch underscores the lawlessness gripping Libya 2 years after the ouster and killing of dictator Muammar Gaddafi. And still ahead in the news. 2 local people test positive for cholera. Robbers prey on 2 shops in Tsim Sha Tsui. And Hong Kong's last racing pigeon shop at the centre of a dispute.